everything communicated through this canonical model, XML. Some interesting things about services. Some of the services actually lived inside this infrastructure. They were JBI compliant components, so they lived inside an enterprise service bus as what we call compliance services. And some of the services actually lived out in existing applications or third-party applications, and were just ESB and all this infrastructure was more or less transformation and pass-through engine to all of these guys. So, that's really the end state where we kind of arrived with this client. And a lot of work is still going on there to further improve, and we're still adding pieces. But, the first, the things that I described earlier in my presentation, kind of the fundamentals, few fundamental things that you have to do up front, had to be done, and that's what led to a successful implementation, which is a large-scale implementation. Okay. I will take questions.
If you would raise your hand, then the question can be said into the microphone.
Man with a microphone.
There comes a question by phone. Max, you have worn them out in the late afternoon. In which case, before I say thank you, let me do some housekeeping so that I have your attention. This is not directly related to Max. We'll thank you in a moment. Just two things. One, because we might miss the person otherwise, if you've dropped on the expo floor a keyring with a raccoon on it and two small keys, you need to come to me or to the show management later on. I'll give it to them. And then also, sorry this is completely irrelevant, Max, but we'll get back to you momentarily.
We're trying to get audience participation at this point, any cost.
If you had one of these cards, I don't know if you saw them in your delegate bag right at the beginning, when we go to the show floor again at 3:30, we're drawing for this Apple iPod. I will draw it. So if you haven't given him one of these, you have to do various things. Make sure you finish that off before 4 o'clock or something, and walk from the show with an iPod. Were there any questions being composed while I said that? There is, you see. No. I knew we just had to buy some time. Back to Max Yankelovich's session. Here we are, sir.
Amazing.
Yeah, I noticed you didn't mention any specific open source product, software that you recommend or you've evaluated, such as Axis, Castor. Have you evaluated the software, or can you tell us what you recommend?
Yes, we've implemented the software and we've evaluated. I mean, in this particular case, we use almost a complete JBoss Red Hat stack, vary from Linux operating system to JBoss application server, Hibernate, along with Service Mix as a JBI compliant container. I'm talking about this specific case. What else? JBoss Rules was a key component. JBPM. I think the names are actually up there. Maybe I wasn't very clear. And MetaMatrix is another product from Red Hat. And enterprise messaging is JBoss MQ products. So this was a specific stack for this implementation.
Another one here.
Yeah, so we have a fairly mature enterprise canonical model that we're using for our web services. Through an acquisition, we acquired a company with a rather mature IFX-based model. Any observations or recommendations on how we can interoperate with those two models or federate them?
That's a good question. So now I'm assuming that we're talking about one of the domains of the company, right? This is insurance domain or your product domain, right?
Yes, exactly. We have a banking subsidiary based on IFX and a credit subsidiary based on an internal canonical model.
Right. So obviously interoperability of those will depend heavily on transformation. So whichever one you're going to pick as an enterprise one, the other one will eventually go away. Again, unless these two kind of complementary to each other. If they're not, you will do a certain amount of transformations while you, let's say, a use case would be you going out, one of the clients is going out to your service and invoking one of your service, and that triggers one of your services to actually go out to your partner or to an acquired entity and grab that payload. So at that point, you will be doing transformation from their canonical model into yours using XSLT rules, whatever. Now, this is a temporary solution, right? So there is transformation perhaps going both ways. At some point, you will need to reconcile both models. I'm assuming they're completely overlapping